Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Produce Buzzers podcast. We are so happy you have joined us today, and I think you will be too after the show is over, because you will learn a lot about fresh fruits and vegetables, how to select and store them, how to prepare and cook them, and surprising facts about their history and origin. We hope it inspires you to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, not only for your health, but also for your delight and pleasure as you explore their amazing world of taste and delicious flavors. Eating more of them will transform your life in so many positive ways. So settle back, relax, and get ready for another delicious adventure with the Produce Buzzers. Greetings, Produce Buzzers podcast fans, and welcome to another delicious episode of the Produce Buzzers podcast. I'm Edwin Stepp, your host and executive editor of ProduceBuzz.com. I'm joined once again by Teresa Nolan, the president and founder of Produce Buzz, along with Rick Stepp and Cynthia Benedetto, both contributing editors to Produce Buzz. As our regular listeners know, we focus primarily on fresh fruits and veggies on the podcast, but we are not discriminatory when it comes to frozen and canned fruits and veggies, especially knowing that freezing and canning of fresh produce is often done just hours after harvesting and preserves the nutrients of those fruits and veggies, allowing them to be enjoyed much longer than fresh. And it has been shown that frozen and canned veggies often have more nutrients locked in than fresh fruits and veggies that have lingered in the supply chain and on the grocery store shelves. So today we're going to diverge from our fresh tradition and talk about one of the most delicious fruits you can get in a can. Pears from the Pacific Northwest of the United States. To help us learn all about them, we have a special guest today who promotes and markets canned pears from that region. Our guest today is Susan Renke, the promotion director for the Pacific Northwest Canned Pear Service. Welcome, Susan, to the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, thank you. So, Susan, as we mentioned, is the promotion director for the Pacific Northwest Canned Pear Service. They represent the growers and processors of U.S. canned Bartlett pears grown in Oregon and Washington. Her primary focus for the pear industry is working with schools from K through 12 and USDA foods programs supporting American agriculture. Susan manages the marketing, public relations, and social media programs for the Canned Pear Service, focusing on activities reaching menu decision makers and culinary nutrition influencers. Susan is a food service industry marketing veteran who has built her career working with a variety of food and agricultural organizations, including commodity boards that represent some of your favorite fruits and veggies out there, branded companies, agencies, and trade associations. Susan's specialty is food service business development and marketing programs aimed at increasing sales, visibility, and brand equity. She has a strong relationship with distributors and food service operators, plus an in-depth knowledge of food service distribution and purchasing systems, menu development, and culinary trends. Susan has worked with organizations such as Driscoll's Berries, the Pear Bureau Northwest, or USA Pears, which represents the fresh pears from that region, and Sunkist Growers, which I know many of our listeners know that brand well. She represented those companies in the past, running her food service consulting business, Food Marketing Resources. She has also managed food service programs and positions with the California Strawberry Commission, Sun World International, the Produce Marketing Association, Ketchum Public Relations, and the Culinary Institute of America. And she has a strong background in the culinary world. In her spare time, Susan leads culinary tours to international and domestic destinations with her company, Global Palate Adventures. Thanks again for joining us, Susan. Tell us about your background and how you came to work for the Pacific Northwest Canned Pear Service. So what was that journey like?
Okay, well, thank you so much. Yes, I'm sure that was a long list, so your listeners can tell I'm not in my 20s anymore. But I started my
Mm.
career with a degree in journalism and ended up at an ad agency that specialized in the food service industry. So that's where I learned that world. And then from there, I went to work with the California Strawberry Board, as called at the time, leading their food service programs, and eventually branched out into other areas. And so I've always focused my career on agriculture and food service on the marketing side. And I like to say, in a nutshell, that means I connect farmers and chefs.
Oh, that's good. Farm to table.
Yep. Just distilling it down like that way.
Right. That's good.
Which, yeah, I'm very lucky and it's fun. So I spent 10 years in my consulting business working with USA Pears on the fresh side. So I knew a lot about the pear industry, and I happen to know the predecessor at the Pacific Northwest Canned Pear Service. He was retiring, so we connected, and about 6 years ago or so, I ended up on staff with Pacific Northwest Canned Pear. So that's how I made it to this point.
Yeah, very good. Well, a distinguished career and learned so much about all kinds of fruits and veggies. I'm sure in all those positions. It's very interesting that there is an actual organization that focuses on canned pears from a certain region. Tell us about the Pacific Northwest Canned Pear Service. What's their mission? What services do they provide? And what do you do for them more
Okay,
specifically?
sure. So, as most of your listeners probably know, commodity organizations such as the Beef Board, the Dairy Council, strawberries, mangoes, watermelon, there's a commission or a board out there for so many products. So we don't sell anything, but we do the promotion, the marketing, raise the visibility, and provide usage ideas for the target audiences that work with our products. So we support the growers as well as the organizations selling the product. And we do that by, as I mentioned, everything from recipe ideas and trade shows. And our budget is very efficient. So we focus in on the specific target segments that are right for us. So we don't do a lot of work on the consumer retail side because of our budget. We focus mostly on food service, and then we distill that down to K-12 schools, colleges, universities, healthcare. We also work with the dietitians that work with all of those segments, because most dietitians are big fans of canned fruit because they see it as an easy, convenient way for their customers and patients to get more fruit in their diets. And one thing I want to mention, we work closely with the USDA commodity program. They buy about a third of our crop to provide for the National School Lunch Program as well as for food
Oh,
banks.
yeah. Yeah, pears is one, probably one of, as I mentioned at the beginning, one of the most delicious fruits or veggies you can get in a can. One of our favorites. We grew up, Teresa, Rick, and I, siblings, grew up eating canned pears quite often. They were a staple in our cupboard. Teresa knows the recipe that we most often used. What was that, Teresa?
Oh, it was a very
our mother
difficult
fed
pear
us.
salad.
Complex.
Very difficult pear salad. You open the can of pears, you put it on a lettuce leaf with a little dollop of mayonnaise and some grated cheese, and it was really good.
It was
And I
delicious.
still make that sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People at trade shows come up to me and tell me about that recipe all the time.
Right. Didn't you
Yeah,
say,
Yeah.
Teresa?
but then also, I love the fruit cocktail because that's probably like what I remember the most. And I would pick out the pineapple and the pears, and of course the cherries.
Oh, the cherries.
Yeah.
I do
But
that
the pineapple and the pears, they just, that was always what I was digging for.
Yeah. Treasure hunt.
Yeah. Well, the first time I went to Great Britain, I went into a restaurant, and on the menu they had an American salad. And I thought, what is this? And I ordered it, and it was a pear on a lettuce leaf with a dollop of mayonnaise and some cheese. So there you go.
That's great.
Straight out of our mother's recipe book.
I was
all
gonna
the
say
way.
maybe they ate at that
Yeah.
restaurant that y'all had when you were little, some Brit, and then I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing I ever had.
That's a good point. That could have happened.
Wait, didn't that happen on
Yeah.
some other recipe that you were talking to that fellow and he
Oh, he just, Susan, she's talking about our grandmother ran a restaurant. And
Oh,
we had this complex family business. There was a restaurant, a gas station, a general store, a hardware store, and then our dad's produce warehouse.
oh,
And our grandmother ran this restaurant, and I was on a flight out of Chicago one time, and the man sitting next to me asked me where I was from, and I told him originally from Hendersonville. He said, "Oh, that was part of my sales territory. Every time I would go there, no matter where I was at lunchtime, I went to Dana, which was the little community we grew up in, and I ate at Mrs. Stepp's restaurant." He
Oh.
said, "Did you know her?" And I said, "My grandmother." He said, "It's the best food I've ever eaten." So
awesome.
that's what she's talking about. But I don't think he specifically singled out any one dish, Cynthia, but
There were too many good ones.
Great.
that's right.
Mostly the home cooked vegetables.
Yeah.
Most people liked about them.
Right.
I can tell you, because I ate there many times as a child, they did not have pears for dessert
Oh,
or for a salad. It was home cooked vegetables and a meat and a bread. And then for dessert, it was banana pudding.
So a limited menu. They didn't have Susan promoting them.
I know. Got
They
lots
could
of
have made a
ideas.
pear- They could have made a pear pudding. I'm sure it would have been good.
Yeah.
Or just canned pears as dessert. That's
Right.
awesome. Yeah, they are delicious canned pears. And as we mentioned, the nutrition can be locked in much greater in a can. Tell us about the nutrition of canned pears and
versus fresh.
benefits.
So I'll tell you a little bit about canned, and when the canned pears are a great source of fruit in a serving, 100 calories in a serving, and you've got 0 cholesterol, 0 fat, super low sodium, and also a good source of fiber. So the fresh pear has a little bit more fiber because the skin's still on it, but otherwise
Right.
it's the same nutrition profile.
Interesting. And tell us about how a pear gets from the tree and into the can.
Mhm.
And maybe I suppose it varies, but one of the things that I know in a lot of canned and frozen, they're processed and sealed in within hours sometimes of being harvested. Pears may need a little bit more time.
Yeah, they're not so
ripen.
much within hours, but
Yeah.
the way it works is that the Bartlett pear growers, they may also sell to the fresh market as well as have contracts with the canneries.
Okay.
So traditionally in the Northwest, the larger fruit will go off to the fresh market, where the smaller fruit that has been sized just right, they use a little tool to check the sizing, then goes to the cannery. I mean, I do know that on the fresh side, the fresh industry, they use a lot of the smaller pears for school lunch program or bagged pears in retail. But
Yeah.
with Bartlett's, which are the very best variety for canning, just the way they hold up in the canning process, the same grower, the same farmer, the same tree, those pears then go to the cannery when our harvest starts in August. And up in Oregon and Washington, they are then taken to the cannery where they are ripened right there at the cannery. So they're just the exact ripeness that you'd want in a pear. And then they're peeled and they're cut, sliced, or diced and poached right inside the can. And the peelers, I don't know if you've ever seen those tools that you put on the countertop at home for pears and apples, where you stick the pear in and you turn the handle and the peel comes off. My mom made apple pies that way.
Right.
They look exactly like that in the cannery, only just a bigger Willy Wonka size going on with all of the peels falling down, and then they're either cut in half to sold as halves in the can, or they're sliced and diced, and where they're sorted on conveyor to make sure there's no blemishes on the pieces that are going into the can. And then the poaching liquid is added, which is either juice or sweetened syrup. Extra light syrup is what USDA prefers. And then they are poached right in those cans. So they're really, a canned pear is a poached pear. If you're looking for convenience and when you want to use poached pears for something, open a can of pears.
Yeah, very good. They are poached right in the can. Tell us a little bit more about that. Are they sealed in the can before poaching?
Yes. They're sealed and heated and poached in the can. And I don't know about the temperature and
that was going to be the next thing I asked you.
You'd have to get somebody from Del Monte or something on here.
Right. Well, that's interesting. You mentioned Del Monte. So the Pacific Northwest Canned Pear Service, there's different brands who are actually canning these, right?
Yes. So before I just mentioned the one, we represent all of the packs. So there's Del Monte and the Neil Jones Food Company are located in the Northwest. We also work with a California company, Pacific Coast Producers, because they actually can some of the Northwest fruit. So the Northwest pears are canned by those three companies. And those are the major commercial canners and processors in the US. As you might know, on the fresh side, like 85% of all the commercially grown pears in the US come from Oregon and Washington, but California plays a big role too on the cannery side also.
Interesting.
So, but now, is it for the farmer, for the grower, what for his return? Is it better for fresh or for canned?
It depends on the market and the year.
Right. So like if they have a short crop, then, and it's short for the fresh side, then the FOBs are going to be out of control. But if they're really long, and they've already got a contract with the cannery, that's like their bread and butter, right?
They stick with their contract. So, sometimes it's a year contract, sometimes it's a 2-year contract, but they stick with their contract for the cannery. Because I have mentioned, it's different size fruit in the Northwest that goes to the can, so versus fresh. So the FOB market might be different for fresh, but they'll stick with their cannery.
But so that's like they know they're getting that money. So that's like, they don't have to cross their fingers that, the freeze doesn't come or, something like that. But what about, since you connect, which I love, the growers and now the chefs, have your growers been impacted by the fact that chefs just like go crazy for like the mini whatever? So like a mini little fruit, a mini little pear, like, because I had it with this nut chef that wanted the mini pineapples. So does that take some of the numbers away?
No, it hasn't affected the numbers because these are the Bartlett variety, remember. So the mini pears that you're seeing, they might be a Seckel or some other variety, but so it's not going to affect the Bartletts.
So food service, you're focusing on schools, K through 12, and then other institutions. Do they take a bigger size package in those, or
they take the number 10 cans go to all the food service industry? So there's the number 10s, and then there's the 15-ounce retail size, which goes to retail and food banks.
How many ounces is a number 10 can?
It's about 64 ounces off the top of my head.
It's one of those big tomato cans
that
are like about that big.
Yeah.
And that'll have how many pears in it? Do you know? On
I guess it depends on the size of it.
For buyers of canned pears, we have a product guide. And in that product guide, it has a chart and it lists the yield that you're going to get out of the can of pears, the juice and the fruit. And so it helps a menu planner understand what they need for purchasing. So we do have all that information. We also focus on some recipes and applications for using the juice. So
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't need to just throw away the liquid in the can of pears. We have recipes on our website that can be used for sauces, for baking. There's quite a few salad dressings, quite a few things you can do with the juice in the can of pears.
Yeah, that's good.
What
That's
type
good
of
to know.
juice is used?
So it's either going to be pear juice or extra light syrup.
So
If
the pear juice, how do they get that? Do they juice pears in separately and then add?
it's a separate product that they have to purchase. Yeah, it might be from the not the waste, but it might be from in the processing where they don't use all of the pears, but they do actually have to go source the pear juice.
Mhm.
And there's with USDA, there's a Buy American program for K-12 schools. So pear juice isn't as widely available. So that's why they stick with the extra light syrup in the volumes that they need, because they want it to be an American product.
Can they be poached in water?
Yeah, they can be, but they're not going to be preserved as long as they can, because the sugar helps with that preservation process.
Okay.
Oh, interesting. I wondered about that. That's good
Yeah.
to know. And good to know that there are some uses for the juice after the can. I had a question about the peels. When they peel them, what do they do with those peels? Are they just discarded, or do they
So
go?
all the discard is used one way or the other. And so it can be used for cattle feed.
Yeah,
So
that's
they don't, nothing's trashed, but everything that they can use goes for cattle feed.
yeah. I thought that might be one of the
Mhm.
primary uses for it, but not really for human consumption, I don't guess.
No, not the way it's handled.
Can you make? You can make sort of, I won't say plastic cups, but they're making cups now out of orange peels and all those
Oh,
kinds of fruit
I
peels.
love
I
it.
wondered if
Yeah.
if you could make cups out of pear peels.
Now, that's a thought. That's a
But
thought.
wouldn't it have to be hardier, like an orange peel that is,
That's what I would think.
Yeah.
But they're
I
making
don't know.
cups from corn.
Corn is a big one, sir.
Yeah.
I was just on a trip to Iceland, and in a shop, an artist had taken, I think it was zucchini and radishes, and dried them and cut them super thin and dried them and made bowls out of them, and they were gorgeous. So
Interesting.
anyway,
were
that's
they
a totally-
reusable bowls or like,
they were expensive bowls to sit on your shelf.
oh, okay.
That's very interesting. You talked about the Northwest being the primary source of pears, especially in the canned pear industry, it seems. Why did the Northwest, Washington and Oregon specifically, emerge as the primary growers of pears? Do you know that history, or?
I don't know why they and how they started, but I do know that the soil and the growing conditions, they have that loam, sandy loam soil that is good for so many crops. And the Columbia River goes through Washington and Oregon. It kind of cuts the border of the two states. And so the Hood River Valley in the southern part of Oregon, or central part of Oregon, as well as the Wenatchee and Yakima areas of Washington, they're all fairly similar in terms of their hot nights and the cold other way around, hot days and cold nights. Yep. So the whole all the things combined to make a great growing area. I mean, we can see I live on the border of Oregon and Washington. I'm actually in Vancouver, Washington, and we can see Mount Hood in Oregon from where we are. So as I said, a lot of pears are grown there, and then a couple of hours east in Washington also. So it's just all those things combined to make it great growing conditions for pears. As I mentioned, they also grow in California too.
Right. And California, but Washington and Oregon surpass California as far as production of pears, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
On the fresh side. Now on the cannery, they come kind of close, but we're we still can more.
Right. But you don't represent anybody from California.
No, not the growers, but as I said, some of the Northwest product is packed.
Oh, packed in California. Got it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Okay. Well, what are some of you talked about those great growing conditions for pears in Oregon and Washington. What are some of the key concerns of pear farmers for their future, or you know, are they optimistic? Are there some difficult problems they're facing?
Well, like farmers everywhere, it's not an easy life, and you know, especially the last couple of years, labor has been quite a big issue. Most of the workers that work with the pear industry are local, so that's helpful too. But I would say one of the primary concerns our industry has, as we're focusing on Oregon and Washington or the West Coast, is on the canning side, there are a lot of non-US grown product coming into the market that are so much less expensive for by institutional buyers in particular, but also at retail, that I'm sure it's quite tempting for buyers to purchase the pears that are coming from China and other countries in the world.
But didn't you say that, excuse me, that to be in the school program,
yes,
it has to be
American grown.
American grown.
Yes, and they buy about a third of our crop, I mentioned. So the U.S. grown product has stricter quality controls, food safety controls that some of these other countries don't have. And yes, there is a Buy American provision for military foods as well as K-12. Now, sadly, there's also some exceptions because schools have very tight, almost non-existent budgets when they're specifically the last couple of years, they've been really struggling. So they can make exceptions through their distributor oftentimes, or their distributor may say, oh, here's the pears that we have. And then the school district takes them not knowing. I mean, it's a something that always has to be watched. But the other buyers that don't have a Buy American provision can get pears from anywhere. I was just at a college university food service show, and I had so many people as we were sampling a pear parfait that had diced pears, vanilla yogurt, and granola on top. And so many people said, wow, the consistency of these canned pears is so good. And I'm talked to them a little bit about, well, maybe you've tasted pears from China or other countries, because sometimes those pears in China have even been frozen and then canned. It has happened. I've had people that work in that industry tell me. So the quality control with the US product is just amazing.
Yeah, that's good.
Is there a way that, is it marked on the can that it's a USA pear?
Yes, it'll say product of USA. And so that's what we just did a new ad. Even, well, we always say everywhere, look for that on the can, it'll say US grown or product of USA. Yep.
But I mean, like when you're talking to college kids, or you're talking to, if it was assisted living or a hospital, you know, the end user doesn't see the can that gets thrown out.
No, that's why we talk to the buyers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why we talk to them. As I said, our budget is very efficient. So most of our conversations go to buyers and menu planners.
Do they respond to that? Are they responsive to your discussion about USA? Yeah.
They are very responsive to it, particularly the schools. But even the other markets, especially if they get a chance to try the two different products side by side, which we don't often do, but they've tried both in the past. So when they try our product, they're convinced.
What about exports? Do they export a lot, or does it stay mostly in the US?
Mostly in the US. Yeah, there's not a lot of exporting of canned pears going on.
Okay, yeah. Not even to Canada?
It's a good question. Not as much. No, it's mostly stays in the US. It's a smaller market for export.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Well, what about what are some interesting facts about pears that our listeners may or may not know? Some trivia. We like to get into
Yeah,
trivia
well,
sometimes in this.
sure. People don't realize that once you plant a commercial pear tree, it can take 5 to 7 years before that tree bears fruit for production.
Right.
But then once you do start having fruit, those trees can be 100 years old, 75, 100 years
Wow.
old. So
can last.
some of the pear farmers right now, they may be harvesting pear trees that their grandparents planted. So that it has a
Wow.
lot of, once it gets going, it has a lot of longevity.
My
Right.
friend's just taking over his grandparents' pear farm.
Ah,
And yeah, to your point that in Hood River.
great. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You also said though that you worked with the CIA. Did you attend CIA?
No, I don't have a culinary background. I have a marketing background. I worked on their sponsorship team at their Greystone campus. So the Culinary Institute of America has multiple programs where they connect sponsors with chefs and that are coming in for educational programs. So my job was to work on the sponsorship team for those events.
A lot of my chefs came from the CIA, and
Yeah.
it was pretty impressive.
And they could tell you they came from the CIA. It wasn't a secret.
Yeah, it was not. But speaking of that play on words, when did it become the meme where she's got a pear-shaped body? You know, when did it become like the womp womp?
Yeah.
But now I guess curves are in.
Yeah. Some of those, like those
Partridge
old.
in a pear tree?
What?
Well,
Can someone please explain me a partridge in a pear tree? What is that?
Don't know how partridge got in that tree. I don't know.
I think we had that fact once on one of our shows, didn't we? Had one.
Well,
Teresa, did you apologize in advance for us?
Not yet.
I don't know if you're
talked-
still gonna have a friendship after this.
Oh, I think we will. This is nothing.
we talked about that. We talked about that Christmas carol, and we did a little segment on fresh pears back in near Christmas time. So we talked about the 12 days of Christmas.
Ah,
One of the questions we had was, on the first day, the true love gave to their true love a partridge in a pear tree, and then every other day through the 12 days, did they get another partridge in a pear tree? So at the end, they had 12 partridges and 12 pear trees, because,
mm.
like they say,
So is that
on the second
exponentially or
day-
geometrically
Yeah.
grew?
on the second day, my true love gave to me two French hens, two
Yeah.
turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. But they got a partridge in a pear tree the day before.
Oh,
So now at the end of it,
yeah, I
so
never
we
thought that.
puzzled over.
Yeah,
Pretty
You
much
know-
a farm by the time you finish through that
Yeah,
song.
that's
You know, you got an orchard and everything.
All kinds of
Or the
fowl, poultry, poultry farm.
Cows.
yeah.
and-
Sounds like a mess.
Yeah.
So if you were a chef in a white tablecloth restaurant, and you could put one pear recipe on the menu, what would it be?
Good question.
Yeah, that is
One pear recipe.
best one he's ever had.
The American salad, of course.
There you go. That's a good one. And I'm not sure I can pick one. I saw this great recipe that was developed by a K-12 chef, but is so high end. And it's and he took the canned pears and poached them or let them sit overnight in pomegranate juice. And so the pears turned a beautiful pinkish reddish color. Then he sliced them on a plate with a little bit of pomegranate. What are they? The seeds of pomegranate.
pomegranate seeds.
Yes. Okay. And then some frisee lettuce and a little bit of, I'm trying to think what kind of cheese he used. it was something richer than feta, but maybe it was blue cheese that was crumbled. And boy, this thing is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it looks like a painting, a palette, because the way it's arranged on the plate with the reddish slices of pears. And so he didn't have to poach the pears. He just soaked them overnight, or peel them or anything. He just soaked them overnight in the juice and then paired the pears. We use that word all the time with the frisee and the pomegranates and the cheese. It was absolutely gorgeous.
It sounds
That was the
beautiful. Like
first thing that came to mind.
Using if it absorbs that color of the pomegranate, just like a magenta. But it's funny because when you said pair the pears, but so with your side hustle, the palette, what is it?
It's called Global Palette Adventures.
Global Palette Adventures.
.com, by the way.
Okay, right. And
Thank
so,
you.
and then, or it could have been Global Palette, a 4 by, a 48 by, wooden palette. Or she just said the palette that the artist uses.
Yep. Or the tongue. Yeah, I like to play. That's came up with the play on words.
Cynthia,
You might could get she could have a pun for us.
Yeah.
I'd love to go on a global palette.
Right?
Trips where you.
But what would happen if you and I went on that? Like, so Teresa and Edwin would be pulling their eyelashes out because I'm like, okay, is there a steak house here? Is there like, potatoes anywhere? And then, I think that you and I might be able to eat easier because I think that you're not as disciplined as maybe Teresa. But actually, Edwin's just so sophisticated. I'm just like, I'll
eat
have
anything.
The bread. I'll have the bread.
The weirder, the better.
Yeah. Well, we eat the foods of the countries that we're visiting. So there is a wide variety of
Where'd
things
you go?
to
Give
try.
me 3 places you went.
We have been to Lisbon, Barcelona, Chiang Mai, Sicily. We're going in a couple of months to San Sebastian, Spain. Next year, Santiago and Morocco. Wow. So I just do a couple a year because I do have a full-time job. But I love doing the planning. And
so how long is this trip?
They're usually about a week because most of the people that come on my trips work, but they can either come before or travel before or after on their own, as long as they're going there. So that's kind of, I set them up with the template is that we usually do a couple of walking tasting tours around the city with a local guide so that we can really immerse ourselves in the culture and history food wise. So we'll take maybe 5 or 6 stops where we have a little bite at every single place and possibly something to drink. And while we learn about the history, and then one day we meet a local chef at one of those markets and we walk around and choose the ingredients for the lunch that then we're going to go back with the chef to their restaurant or home. And we hands-on roll up our sleeves and cook our own lunch and then get to enjoy it. And wine is usually involved. And then we'll take 1 or 2 day trips outside the city, maybe to see a vineyard or bread making windmill, goat cheese farm. So that's kind of the template for the week.
That sounds outstanding. So would your meal be different than mine? Because I'm choosing the items for me, or do we all kind of choose like what we like and then it becomes one big meal?
Well, it depends. Sometimes it's a preset menu with just a couple of options, and other times you can order off the menu. So we, and people that have allergies or don't eat seafood or don't eat meat, we can all be.
No, when you said like you went with them to the market.
Yeah. No, the chef has planned the menu.
Oh, okay.
We go to the market. Yeah. We just walk through the open air markets, talk to the other vendors, and we see, those where the local products are sold.
Those food markets in some of those countries are just amazing.
Yeah, they're amazing. Oh, Croatia. I almost forgot we were in Croatia in September. One of my favorite places.
I have some colleagues. I have a documentary production company, my side hustle. And I have some colleagues in Italy, based in Torino, Italy. Mm-hmm. And they did a whole series on the food markets of Europe. Oh, that was just amazing. Those
I'd love to see that. That's fascinating to me.
I'll try to find the link for you and send it. I think you can. It's somewhere.
And And I can give testimony.
Yes.
She is the best planner, and it is so much fun, and everything is so well thought out, and the food is always fabulous. It's really a wonderful experience.
We got to go
Well worth it.
to Victoria in British Columbia together in Salt Spring Islands.
Oh,
Yes.
fantastic.
It was
Yeah, that's
great.
great. Have you ever heard of Terra Madre, the food festival in Torino, Italy? They have it every 2
haven't, but
years.
sign me up.
Yeah, look it up. It's just Terra,
Okay.
Mother Earth, but Italian,
Uh-huh.
I guess. Terra
Okay.
Madre.
I'm writing it down.
And they have it every 2 years, but this year they're having it. It's really a fascinating food festival.
All right.
It's connected a lot with the Slow Food International. Do you know Slow Food?
I
movement?
am familiar with that. Yep.
Yeah. So they're connected, not directly, but they have a lot of similar type of
Yeah.
goals and mission. So check that
Okay.
out.
Awesome.
That'd be a good Torino would be a good destination. A lot of people don't think of that as a city in Italy to go to.
I would
And
love to.
It's fantastic. The region around it too.
That's what I hear. I just got a couple more minutes if you have any.
Yeah, I was noticing the time here, so
Yeah.
I think we probably can conclude unless Teresa has it homegrown.
Well, I sort of do.
Okay, do you?
But-
But first of all,
Oh,
let me
boy.
explain
You
this.
know.
You know what our homegrown is? You probably didn't see it. So we
No.
have a segment. Teresa loves her puns. So
Oh, she's
every-
the expert
every-
at puns.
yeah, every episode we have the segment called Homegrown.
Ah.
So when she tells her pun, we know it's going to be bad. So we always groan.
Got
We
it.
never know how bad it's gonna
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
So when she's done, you got to groan, Susan. Don't be
I'm
nice
on
to her.
board.
Don't
I'm
be
on board.
nice. So, Produce Buzzers podcast fans, it's time for your favorite segment on the Produce Buzzers podcast. Yes, it's time for Home Grow. What do you mean it's not your favorite? You mean you hate it? Oh my. You know you love it. But whether you love it or hate it, no, don't press the pause button. Don't exit the app. Keep playing because you have to listen to another terrible pun from Teresa Nolan. Teresa.
I think I've told you in the past about the farmer who had a fear of gardening. So he finally
don't remember.
decided to grow a pear. And
I forgot that
one.
but do you know what happened after that?
No.
I'm afraid to
Yeah.
ask.
Tell us.
What happened after the farmer who was afraid of gardening grew a pear? What happened?
He developed paranoia.
Oh, I love it.
Okay.
And do you know
love it.
do you know
I
what
am-
the
That is
Oh.
such good inspiration.
and do you know what another name for puns is? Paranomasia.
Oh.
That is
Not to be mistaken with paranormal.
there's nothing normal about these pears
Well,
anyway.
I can tell you guys have fun every time you do this. This
Yeah,
is
we
a fun
do.
show. That's what I want to say.
Well, we'll let you go.
We have
Thank
this fun show.
Thank you so much, Susan, for joining us. It was such a pleasure. We learned a lot and fascinating about canned pears and how they're prepared and grown.
Yes,
Thank
now
you.
have a newfound respect, and we can't be condescending to pears because nutritionally it's the same. I mean, it's probably better.
It's great. And you can learn everything and more at eatcannedpears.com.
Okay, eatcannedpears.com listeners, check it out. And also globalpalateadventures.com. Check out those tours. They
Thank
look
you.
fascinating.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Susan.
Thank
Hope
you.
have
you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
a- Bye-bye.
See ya.
Well, thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Produce Buzzers podcast, brought to you by Produce Buzz, the gathering place for lovers of fresh fruits and veggies. We hope you were entertained a bit and educated a lot about fresh produce. Be sure to join us next time And please tell your friends to do so as well. Like, share, and comment on our Produce Buzz Facebook page. And check out our website at www.producebuzz.com. There you will find articles about fresh fruits and veggies, how to select, store, and prepare them, as well as lots of interesting facts about all the wonderful bounty the earth provides for us. Until next time, be fruitful and don't forget to veg out.